Hello. This is the absolute state of Sunscorched Studios. Early this year, as I said in my previous announcement video, where you last saw me, Sunscorched went through layoffs. We went from a larger team with larger plans to a much smaller core team. Right now, Sunscorched is just 3 of us trying to keep things moving, keep the studio alive, and work out what the next version of this company actually is. That has meant making sacrifices, reducing scope, taking on other work, and being honest about what we can and cannot make right now. But it has not meant giving up. The old version of Sunscorched was trying very hard to become a bigger studio, bigger projects, bigger plans, more ambitious games. But the reality is that the current version of Sunscorched is a tiny horror studio in survival mode, making the weirdest games we possibly can, fixing what we can from the games we built when we had a larger team, and refusing to disappear. To give a bit more context, MALPRAXIS was not a small project for us. When we started work on it back in 2022, it was originally called Negative Atmosphere Emergency Room. The idea was to use the funding we'd received through venture capital to do 2 things. First, prove that we could actually make and release a complete game. And second, prove out some of the medical horror technology, systems, tone and workflow we wanted to eventually use for Negative Atmosphere. So MALPRAXIS represented years of work, experimentation, writing, art, audio, performances, systems, and a huge amount of effort from our team. And alongside development, we were also pitching constantly. Over that period, we pitched to more than 40 publishers, investors, and potential partners. Without breaking any NDAs or naming anyone, that process involved every flavour of disappointment you can imagine. Polite rejections, quiet rejections, no replies, long evaluation periods, promising conversations that then disappeared, and situations where we were dragged along for months but then nothing came of it. Some of those conversations lasted for over 6 months. And we were doing all of that whilst also trying to develop and ship the game. A lot of the pitching, follow-ups, paperwork, decks, calls and chasing happened outside of normal work hours because the actual work still had to get done during the day. And it was exhausting. And when all of that effort failed to turn into the funding and publishing support we so desperately needed and know you wanted, it was devastating. And then MALPRAXIS just didn't sell the way we needed it to. We're extremely proud of what is in that game and we're still supporting it, but commercially it just wasn't the breakout success that a team of our size needed to survive. RATSHAKER, on the other hand, and unintentionally, did work. In fact, it worked phenomenally well. It sold far beyond anything we ever expected. With over 100,000 units sold, it's built an incredible community, and it really did help keep Sunscorched alive. But RATSHAKER is also a very cheap, very short game made in a month, and it was never designed to support a 13-person studio. If Sunscorched had been a 3 or 4-person team at the time, RATSHAKER would have been a completely different story. At that scale, a weird, short, successful horror game like that can genuinely support the studio for years and give us more room to make more things. But with a larger team, payroll, contractors, software, taxes, insurance, accounting and all the other costs of running a large company, even a success like RATSHAKER was just simply not enough to support that version of Sunscorched long term. Of course, after MALPRAXIS did not sell the way we hoped, and whilst RATSHAKER was helping but could not carry a team that large, we used the limited funding we had left to make another game called SNOTROCKET. And that was honestly a bit of a Hail Mary, we all knew this. We'd spent years trying to make a bigger, more ambitious project work, and when that simply didn't pay off in the way we needed, we tried to make something smaller, faster, more chaotic and more immediately playable. And to be fair to the team, I'm extremely impressed by what we managed to do there in the time frame and financial constraints we had. We managed to build a multiplayer game, having never built one before, in around 2 months. That is, if any of you are game developers, utterly ridiculous. That is also the kind of thing the team was capable of when we were all pushing together. But SNOTROCKET also did not become the breakout success we needed it to be. We took it right down to the line. We tried everything we realistically could. We patched, updated, pitched, promoted, adjusted, and looked for every route we could find to keep the larger team going. But with a team that big, we needed one of those releases to really break out, or we needed serious external backing to land on time, and we didn't get either, despite everyone's best efforts. And so the only choice at that point was to lay everybody off. Not one decision, not one person, not one single mistake. This is just the reality that the studio we had built needed a level of commercial success or external backing that we just simply didn't manage to secure. So, now Sunscorched is a skeleton crew. A much smaller team working on a much more realistic plan for our size. Support what we've already released, reshape the parts that need reshaping, make smaller games we can now finish, and keep pitching the bigger dreams without letting them sink the studio. And at this scale, the RATSHAKER model makes a lot of sense for us. Shorter, stranger, more focused horror games. But we also learned from what RATSHAKER struggled with. It was a short, focused and effective game, but it ultimately lacked replayability. We knew this. Some people finished it, got everything they wanted from it, and had no reason to return, except for update skins, rituals, or other community nonsense we drilled up. So going forward, we want to keep the immediacy and weirdness of RATSHAKER, but build games with more replayability baked in right from the start. More progression, more unlocks, more reasons to come back, and more systems that still make sense after the first run. This is the approach behind KEYKRUNCHER. You've seen in our most recent announcement trailer. I say game, although it's technically a treatment program. Can you not type? Can you not read? Are you tired of not being able to eat your own keyboard? KEYKRUNCHER is the ultimate treatment for your insatiable desire to consume keyboards. As you can see, this is probably the clearest example of where Sunscorched is heading right now. Replayable, weird horror comedy, immediately understandable from one sentence, and deeply stupid in a way we believe may actually be medically significant. As with all experimental treatment programs, results are of course not guaranteed. Outcomes may include permanent disability, death, or a complete inability to stop eating keyboards. Of course, we have to tackle the elephant in the room. A lot of you people are only still here because of negative atmosphere. And as I said in our previous update and in the KEYKRUNCHER trailer, we're still pitching it, we're still talking about it, we are still trying to find a route back to it, and trying to get at least some of the gang back together to work on it. But the reality is, we're going to have to pitch it as a smaller title, and that is what we're currently pitching. One with more realistic scope, built around the strongest parts of what made people care about it in the first place, which is the medical horror, oppressive atmosphere, mechanics around enemies and drugs, and the overall feel of the universe and the ship. Of course we're optimistic about its ability to return. We believe it's a phenomenally good concept, but there's no results yet. There's no signed deal, and we have no magic announcement. There is unfortunately no secret money machine running in the background pumping us full of money to make negative atmosphere. There is just us, the three of us now, continually pitching, believing and hoping that somebody with the financial ability to back that project will believe in it just as much as we still do. And we love it too much to ultimately share it forever. We've also rebuilt the Patreon around what Sunscorched actually is now. Some of you may know, for a long time, our Patreon was tied heavily to negative atmosphere and the older version of the studio. That made sense at the time, but it doesn't describe us anymore. We don't want to ask for patron support for a game that's not currently in active development. The key thing is that we are not repeating the same mistakes as before. We are not promising monthly builds. We are not pretending there is a giant studio pipeline with multiple departments and tiers of approval and a huge production machine behind it. And we are also not pretending that Patreon is simply just a recurring subscription box. This is direct support for a tiny team making horrible little games that arguably should not exist. Patrons also get access to the Sunscorched Studios Spaghetti Pineapple Cabana Resort Discord, which is about as professional as it sounds. This is our supporter hub for updates, behind the scenes scraps, polls, links, dev nonsense, and whatever else falls out of the studio's vents. Watching the videos, playing our games, leaving reviews, sharing updates, joining our community, and telling your most unstable friend about RATSHAKER or KEYKRUNCHER will significantly help us too. So this is the absolute state of Sunscorched Studios. We're smaller than we were. We've had to make sacrifices, take on other work, reduce scope, and be honest about what we can actually do right now with what we have left. But we are still here. MALPRAXIS is being reworked by us around the strongest parts of what we previously made, with clearer progression, replayable missions, collectibles, and less unintentional frustration, so you can enjoy the things our team put so much time and effort into. RATSHAKER is still somehow alive thanks to you all, and still mutating. It's also surrounded by an incredible community we never expected to exist, and of course we're going to continue to support and encourage that. And SNOTROCKET is getting focused updates to make what is already there clearer, funnier, and better to play for all of those who stumble across it with their friends. And KEYKRUNCHER is coming. And is probably the clearest example of the kind of strange, replayable horror comedy we want to make next as the three of us. Negative Atmosphere is still being pitched, but as a smaller and more realistic version of the thing we love, to increase our chances of getting funding from publishers and getting at least some of the gang back together. And the new Patreon is there for anyone who wants to directly support this smaller, weirder, desperately surviving version of Sunscorched. We are not going to pretend this has been easy. In fact, it's been incredibly hard, and we're also not going to pretend we were the same studio we were before this, but we are not giving up. We are still going to make horrible little games that probably should not exist, and yet for some reason you lot want to play them. So, with that being said, please prepare to consume your keyboards.